Villefranche-sur-Mer is a commune in the Alpes-Maritimes department in the Provence-Alpes-Côte d'Azur region on the French Riviera. Geography: Villefranche-sur-Mer adjoins the city of Nice to the east along Montboron, Montauban and Montvinaigre, and 10 kilometers southwest of Monaco. The Bay of Villefranche is one of the deepest natural harbors of any port in the Mediterranean Sea and provides safe anchorage for large ships, reaching depths of 95 meters between the Cape of Nice and Cap Ferrat. It extends to the south to form a 500 meters abyss known as the Undersea Canyon of Villefranche at about 1 nautical mile off the coastline. The town limits extend to the hills surrounding the bay, climbing from sea level to an altitude of 520 meters at Montluz, reflecting on land the features found offshore. The 3 corniches, or main roads linking Nice to Italy, pass through Villefranche. History: the site of what is now Villefranche and surrounding Bully-sur-Mer and Saint-Jean-Cap Ferrat has been settled since prehistoric times. Celto-Ligurian tribes roamed the area and established farming communities on the surrounding hills. The Greeks and later the Romans used the natural harbor as a stopover en route to the Greek settlements around the western Mediterranean. After the conquest of Gaul by Julius Caesar, the Romans built an extension of the Via Aurelia, which passed through the settlement of Montolivo. By the fall of the Carolingian Empire, the area was part of Lotharingia and later part of the county of Provence. In 1295, Charles II, Duke of Anjou, then Count of Provence, enticed the inhabitants of Montolivo and surroundings to settle closer to the coastline in order to secure the area from pirates. By charter, he established Villefranche as a free port, is thus the name, granting tax privileges and port fee rights that lasted well into the 18th century. By 1388, East Provence became part of the Duchy of Savoy as a result of the disputed succession to the heirless Queen Joan I of Naples. For the next 400 years, the area known as the County of Nice was hotly disputed between the Holy Roman Empire, to which Savoy was an ally, and the French. In 1543, the Franco-Turkish armies sacked and occupied the city after the Siege of Nice, prompting Duke Emmanuel Philibert to secure the site by building an impressive citadel and a fort on nearby Montauban. In the late 17th century, the area fell to the French but was returned to Savoy after the Peace of Utrecht. During the 18th century, the city lost some of its maritime importance to the new harbour being built in Nice but remained a military and naval base. In 1744, a Franco-Spanish army under the Prince of Conti overran the Piedmontese regiments of Charles Emmanuel III of Sardinia at the fort of Montauban in the heights above the town. In 1793, the French returned to reoccupy Villefranche, and the county of Nice remained part of the Napoleonic Empire until 1814. It was returned to the Kingdom of Sardinia by the Congress of Vienna. In 1860, as a consequence of the Risorgimento, it was given to France by treaty following a plebiscite. By the late 19th century, it had become an important Russian Navy base, and the Russians established an oceanographic laboratory in the old lazaret. The site was also the winter residence for royalties and wealthy visitors. Villefranche's Bay is notable for reaching a significant depth only a short distance from shore. As a result, it has become an important port over the years. Since World War I, the United States Navy has called on a regular basis, making Villefranche the home port of the U.S. 6th Fleet from 1948 to February 1966, when French President Charles de Gaulle withdrew France from NATO and required U.S. forces to leave. During the most recent years before 1966, the flagship of the Commander 6th Fleet rotated between Springfield and Little Rock. Since the 1980s, Villefranche has been used by cruise ships. It is the most visited cruise ship port of call in France. Population: Villefranche is now part of the urban community of Nice-Côte d'Azur and can be considered a suburb of the Nice metropolitan area. The decrease in population in recent years, and especially in the 1990s, can be attributed to the cost of real estate and an increase of part-time residents, who typically are not counted in the census. But Villefranche's aging population, like elsewhere in the eastern part of the Alpes-Maritimes, is not being replaced by younger people at the same rate as in the rest of the département. Economy: the main activity remains tourism, with hotels and restaurants employing a sizable portion of the population. Traditional activities, like fishing, have now given way to sea-related activities, such as sailing and deep-sea diving. Some dockyard activity remains at the harbour of La Darche, but most of it has now been moved to Antibes. Residential construction and maintenance, which provided a lot of employment in the mid-20th century, has now subsided considerably. Places of interest: churches and chapels. Église Saint-Michel in the heart of Old Town was built in the 1750s in the Baroque Italian style, where originally stood a more modest early 14th century church. It houses various works of art, notably a large St. Michael painting above the marble main altar, a recumbent sculpture Christ known as the Christ of the Galleys, and a polychrome wooden statue of San Rocco. The organ, built by the Grinder brothers in 1790, is one of the oldest of the county of Nice still in operation. The building was included in the French Historic Sites Registry in 1990. The chapelle Saint-Pierre dates from the 16th century, used as a storeroom for local fishermen's nets and equipment for most of the 19th and early part of the 20th century. It was restored in 1957 with Jean Cocteau adding his now famous murals depicting the life of the saint and of local fishermen. The building was included in the French Historic Sites Registry in 1995. Other public buildings: the old harbour of La Darche dates back to the 17th century. Built originally for the galleys of the Duke of Savoy, it is now a marina with dockyard activities for yachts. It is also the site of the Oceanographic Observatory Observatoire Oceanologique de Villefranche of the Pierre and Marie Curie University of Paris, and of the French National Centre for Scientific Research, with 3 laboratories and 150 personnel attached to it. Buildings and structures surrounding the harbour are also included in the French Historic Sites Registry since 1991. The citadel, built in 1557, now houses the town hall, a convention centre, 3 museums and an open-air theatre. The Rue Obscure, or Dark Street, is a passageway under the harbour front houses which dates back to 1260. The Villa Leopold on the hills surrounding was once the residence of King Leopold II of Belgium and has been tagged as the most expensive house in the world. Gallery: public beaches. Plage des Marinières is the main beach and is located at the north end of the bay. It stretches for 1 kilometre under the track of the railway line linking Nice to Italy. Plage de la Darche is a smaller pebble beach located behind the main jetty of the harbour of La Darche. Media: the Old Town and the bay have offered for years a natural set for movie makers. Among many productions, to name just a few: Raoul Walsh's Captain Horatio Hornblower, N. Adventures of Captain Fabian with Errol Flynn, Alfred Hitchcock's To Catch a Thief, The Count of Monte Cristo with Louis Jordan, Leo McCarey's An Affair to Remember, The Madwoman of Charlotte with Katharine Hepburn, Never Say Never Again with Sean Connery, The Jewel of the Nile with Michael Douglas, The Bourne Identity with Richard Chamberlain, Killers with Ashton Kutcher, Maximum Risk with Jean-Claude Van Damme, Dirty Rotten Scoundrels with Steve Martin and Michael Caine, Ronin with Robert De Niro, absolutely fabulous. The movie with Jennifer Saunders and Joanna Lumley. Villefranche-sur-Mer is also a harbor for visiting naval forces and particularly U.S. Navy ships, and the US Volador and the Aegis Cruiser US Yorktown CG-48 in the mid to late 80s. The facades of the buildings in the harbor were the inspiration for the films set in the motors. Action, stunt show spectacular at the Walt Disney Studios Park in Disneyland Paris and Disney's Hollywood Studios in Walt Disney World, Florida. It was also at Villefranche-sur-Mer that the Rolling Stones recorded the 1972 album Exile on Main Street, at the Belle Époque-era mansion Nelkit. Some scenes in Amy Plum's Revenants trilogy take place in Villefranche-sur-Mer. Sister cities: Bordeaux-era, Italy; Cape Coral, Florida, United States; Nieuwpoort, Belgium; Plan les Ouates, Switzerland; Reiskirchen, Germany.